guys, Ramblin Bob here again with more information on the new Pecron machine. So I guess it's been released for pre-order now, and I went to Pecron's website and I look under the power stations, and as you can see, all the power stations that are normally here, they're still the same price, so I don't see much of a Black Friday sale unless something's going to change soon. The only thing that's on pre-order right now is still the batteries. I think we got the last order shipment of batteries, and then I think the new one is going to be, let's see, I think it's November. Yeah, here, mid to late November. So you gotta wait. Oh, they put one too many letters. But okay, so as you go down, notice that there's one more here. Now, what this is, guys, this is the E2400LFP. E2400LFP. So that would be in between the E600 and the E36. Actually, I'm sorry, the E1500 and the E3600. So there's something in between there. I was expecting a 1,000 watt-hour battery because they don't have anything in that range. But let's take a look and see what this is and see if it's useful for some people. Okay, so right away it says it's on a Black Friday pre-order now, and the shipping is expected to start on the 28th. So I'm assuming that's November 28th, which is very soon. I don't see many differences, but let's go through the specs and see if anything's different, because internals is much different than visuals. Okay, so you have a 2400 watt pure sine wave inverter. Now what's nice about that right off the bat is the E2000 had a 2000 watt inverter, and it was really in a tough spot, because if you had two things that pop on, like a refrigerator and freezer like we do, and if they pop on at the exact same time, sometimes that pushes it over the 2000 watt range, and then you would pop your inverter, so you have to reset it. And then they came out with the E1500 system, which was the 2200 watt inverter, so that gave a little bit more room in case you wanted to have, you know, a little bit bigger items on there and they pop on at the same time. So that gave a little bit of extra space, a little headroom, if you will, and that way, you know, you didn't pop the inverter, so you didn't have to, you know, run and reset it all the time. So definitely a better inverter. However, it was a smaller battery pack, and what I like to do is I like to have the inverter at least the same size as the battery pack or bigger. That's just my opinion. That's just what we like. I think it's a very fair balance as far as power. That's a 1-to-1 as far as the battery pack to the inverter output. And then the solar power charging is always different too, depending on the battery packs. But I like to have that equal, if you will, that balance between the size of the battery pack and the inverter. I just think it's better for the batteries. I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an electrician, but it just seems to be a little bit more balanced, you know. Okay, so you have a 2048 watt-hour battery pack, which is much closer to that balance of the AC inverter. Now, what I would do is I would use any power station that I have, people know this on this channel already, at 50% rated output. That's what I try to stick around, because I think it's better for the longevity of the battery packs, the inverter, the heat, just everything, you know, the system as a whole. If you're driving your car, you push your gas pedal all the way to the ground, that's obviously a lot of strain on your car. Yes, it can do it because obviously they tested it. However, it's only a matter of time before, you know, thermal heat starts, you know, where it's overheating, and you have all kinds of little, you know, problems like that. It's kind of like running with your body. If you run really fast, of course, your body's going to break down much faster than if you run a marathon. You have a longer distance. You won't get there as fast, but you will definitely have a better time getting there because you're not pushing your body so hard, hence your power station so hard. Okay, it says you can adjust the charging speed. Now that is a very, very big thing. I didn't know how important this was years ago until you have a situation where you have, let's say you have a power station full, like we have an E3600, and the battery is completely full, and instead of unhooking the solar panels and hooking it up to the other power station, you just want to kind of hook up an AC or something like that, and you want to power dump or charge from one system to another. And if it pulls out too fast, then you're actually draining your first system. So now if I can adjust this, I'm going to assume, I don't know until we get down to the specs there. Let's say you can adjust it up to 6, I think it's like 6, 12, and 18. It's usually increments similar to that or that. So that way you don't have to pull out so hot, so much power, and you can kind of you know, like say you're bringing in 700 watts, and you could set the setting all the way down to, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7, or maybe it's all of it. Maybe you have that whole system in there like the E3600 where you can go from 10% all the way to 100%, and then you could pull out a little bit of extra so you don't waste it. I like that. I didn't know how important that was until I had to learn from the E3600. That's the first system that we've had that you could have multiple variables like that where you could charge. Actually, no, I take that back. I believe I want to say the maybe the Oupes or the AFERY. Yeah, those have settings, but the settings in the Pecron ones are so much easier. Like the AFERY, you had to hold on. I remember you had to hold on the button for like 10 seconds. You get this hidden menu, and then you had to select it that way, which is a pain in the butt. And the noise that you make on the system when you do it is very, very frustrating because it's very loud. It's an irritating beep for like 10 seconds, right? Where the Pecron one, you just hit the menu, and then you know, on the little touchscreen that it has, and then basically you set it to 10% or 20%, 30%, and then you just hit return, and then you're done. So it's very simple. So hopefully this has it in the app where you can actually adjust the charging speeds as simple as the E3600. I don't think this has the touchscreen, but you never know until you read all the specs. So let's keep going. Okay, so you have UPS. That's very important for other people. We don't use universal, uninterruptible power supply. We don't use it. We have a 100% solar to power ratio. That's what we use. We very, very, very rarely put our power station, the 3600, on the grid. Very, very rarely. You have the app control. Guys, Pecron has to work on their app. It's getting much better with version release 1.7, but they still need a long way to go and a lot of updates to, you know, kind of work out little glitches, little bugs and things like that. Although 1.7 does not lock up for us anymore, but it all depends on the phone. You know, some phones were having trouble with Pecron's app when you go far away. Let's see, the Wi-Fi control. Guys, I'm not a fan of Wi-Fi on power stations. I like Bluetooth because then you have to be very close to the power station in order to change the options or see what your power is. That way you don't have to go check on it in person all the time. Like if you were camping, you could have you know, this system or the 3600 or whatever in the, you know, the back of an RV or outside of a tent or wherever you have it, and then you can use the phone to check on how much power you have and how much power you're bringing in for solar and, you know, things like that. Lithium iron phosphate battery, guys, that's basically the go-to nowadays, if you will, the go-to standard as far as what's coming out and what's out now. There are new batteries on the way, but not through probably Pecron and those guys at Bluetti, like sodium. There's more stuff coming, but I have no idea when that's coming. Who knows? Okay, so you can cascade 2 EP3000s, so 48 volt, and remember, you cannot use the EB3000s. Those are 24 volt battery packs. So we've actually had people here on the channel that, you know, mentioned that they bought extra batteries and they didn't pay attention to what model they bought, and because the EB3000 and the EP3000 look 100% identical for the most part at quick glance, they bought the EBs and they tried to hook them up, and obviously that's not a good thing because you're mixing 24 volt battery packs with 48 volt battery packs, and that's not ever a good idea. So you don't want to mix voltage or battery chemistries. You don't want to try to put lithium ion with lithium iron phosphate. It's not a good combination. It's just not, and not recommended by any means. Okay, and it says 700 watts max solar charging. Now what that is, that I wish was higher, because the E1500 has a max of 700 watts through the 5-pin, and I'm going to assume until we get down there that this system has the same 5-pin aviation port as the E1500 and the E2000LFP. We have to wait till we get to the bottom to verify that. We'll go through the pictures, see, but I don't see any other pictures in there that show the ports, so I have to wait. Okay, it says 1800 watts super fast charging. Now that's fantastic and bad at the same time. And the reason that's bad is because, well, let's go through the positives first. 1800 is very quick, which means you could charge the system from 1 to 2 hours full. So you're probably going to be about an hour 50 minutes, hour 55, something like that, to max it out almost. And that's quick if you need it, for, like, say you're going on vacation, you want to, oh, I forgot to charge it, and it doesn't take, you don't have to wait like a whole day to charge it. So that's a positive. However, on the other side of that, with only 700 watts input, it would take you a very long time. Especially, now here's the drawback, if you expand the system all the way up to 8,192 watt hours, it's a very large system. Let me grab a calculator here, and then basically you take that number, the 8192. So let's round it. Let's say 8,200 watt hours. Okay, we'll do the official number here, but just in your head. So 8.2 kilowatt system total, and then you divide that by 700. Now this is where this system has a drawback. Notice it takes you about 11.7 hours to fully charge this system. So that is about 2.2 solar days, possibly 2.5 solar days, to fill up this system if you had the whole thing. Now, there's one thing you can do with the EP3000s. You're allowed to charge through the batteries up to 400 watts on the EP. Boy, this thing is jumpy. Give me 1 second, guys. This page is very jumpy. Okay, so let me pull this back here. Okay, so now we already have the 700 watts for the solar input. And we'll learn more about the solar down there in the specs as well. So you got 700 watts of solar input max coming in through this port. This is I'm gonna once again I'm gonna assume. Let me see if I can read it. Let's see if I can. Let's see here. Okay, yep. So 700 watts max on this one, plus you could use the extra 100. So let's give the benefit of the doubt. Now remember, you need 2 different arrays for this, and you have to make sure that you don't go over your voltage. So let's take the 700 watts, okay, plus if you wanted to use this one here, you would get another 100 watts. Now you can use them in combination with each other. So you can bump it up. At least on every other power station that we have from Pecron, you can use all 3 or all 2 inputs at the same time. And now we're going to add onto that. We're going to add another 800 watts, because that's 400 watts per battery per EP3000. So we're going to add that together, and now we're at 1600 watts. So let's take that roundable 8.2 kilowatts, 8,200 watt hours, and now you're going to divide that by 1600 watts, and notice that you have 5.125 hours, and that's respectfully depending on the sun and power input. If you had full input, that's about what you would need, plus a little bit of conversion loss there, and it slows down probably at the end. So I would say you still need more than a solar day to fill this system, and I think with that, it's not the best balance. The E2600LFP allows you to bring in a ton of power. That's a 15,000 watt hour system, but I can bring in, if I utilize all the batteries, 4,000 plus watt hours. 4,000 plus watts. That is a large amount of power. So I'm able to charge that just over 4 hours. So as you can see, that system was a little bit more balanced that way. And this one is 5.1. So a solar day is usually 5 hours of perfect sun, and then you get what we call miscellaneous or random sun, which is a little bit in the morning, a little bit at night, because the angles are so rough and so drastic that you don't get much power at all. But you do still get some power. Like here right now, it is November 11th, and our solar usually starts at approximately 9 o'clock ish, and it cuts off at about maybe 2:50 or 3:30, somewhere in there. It starts to really drop. But the solar peak hours is probably for us right now maybe about 10:30 to about 3:30, somewhere. Well, no, I'm sorry, 10:30 to like 4:30, because you don't get as much in the winter as you do in the summer. In the summer, that sweet time is about from 10 to 3. But it varies, of course, wherever you are. So it's very hard to keep track of that unless you have a notebook for the entire year. It's frustrating keeping track of solar, believe me. And it said it's 13 versatile outputs. 15-watt wireless charger, and a power delivery port of 100 watts USB-C. I like that. Now, one thing I noticed, I didn't notice it before, it's the elephant in the room. I didn't notice that once again, Pecron, for some reason, removed all of the covers for this system. I am definitely 100% not a fan of that, because dust and splashes can get inside these ports and cause all kinds of problems if you ever had that problem happen. I don't like that. I like the E2000 where the entire system had, and I'll show you the difference here real quick. Let's see here. Let's go to where is it? E2000. This one. So, and then we can bring up this one just in case we need it for reference. So the E2000, when you look at that system, now that's the old. I'm gonna call that the granddad. So, even though this is version 2, it's got the, boy, this is a jumpy page, jumpy website, guys. Even though that they have the new thing, which is the RV port here, the NEMA TT30P, I believe this is called. And this system has, notice it has all of the covers except the NEMA, but they don't have the older version. They took the older version off here. Let me see if I can find it, guys. Let me see. Oh boy. Okay. Let me see if I have an older picture. Let me grab this. Let me look real quick here, guys. I'm gonna find the. We have a website called Buy Me a Coffee, and a lot of people use that for solar references. Let's see, Buy Me a Coffee, Ramblin Bob. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see if it shows up here. Okay, so there you go. Let me pull this back over, and then this is the Ramblin Bob Buy Me a Coffee page, and what this is a database that we have started, and that helps a lot of people learn, because we've helped a lot of people with this stuff. Sometimes it's very confusing. Let me shrink this so we can see it better here. Go to page 10, I believe that's where that, yep, okay, so there. Okay, so on this one it'll have promo codes and stuff, but when you go down there, you will see that the this right here starting, this is a solar power database that we have all the systems, and when you go down to the E2000, they're all in numerical or alphabetical order, unless I made a mistake and I gotta go switch it. So they should be all numerical or alphabetical. Now notice that this says version 1. Now that's very important, because notice there's 6 AC outlets that are 110 volts each, or I'm sorry, 120 volts each. The original system was 110. I updated the board on this one to go to 120. So if you do have version 1, it was only 110 volts. Okay. Now notice that there's a version 2, and that has the RV port. Very simple to check. Obviously, if you have the RV port, you have version 2, and if you have version 1, and they did make different versions of version 1. It's very confusing, and I wish they would have labeled them, but they didn't. You have the 110 version, which is the granddaddy original. That's the one that we have, and then they made a 120 version, and then I believe they made one newer than that as far as the firmware inside, the little updates and whatnot. So this website, you want to bookmark this, guys, because look at all the work that we do. What we do is we go through and we try to get all the information, so that way, like, I'll give you a prime example again. Let's go to the E300. So the E300 also has a version 1 and a version 2. Now, by looks of them, you cannot tell the difference, period. I haven't seen a single sign that you can, put them side by side and be able to tell the difference. However, when you look in the specs here, I gotta make it bigger here, you can see that the power delivery, where's the let's see, the DC output for right here. No, that's solar. Wait, hold on a minute here, guys. Oh boy, give me a second here. We need the USB-Cs here. Let's see here. Holy crap! So is it not listed in here? Come on, it's got to be. Car input AC. Holy crap, Zilla. Oh yeah, okay, here it is. Boy, it's way in the bottom. Now notice it says power delivery 3.0. That's 100 watts, okay? And if you go to version number 2 of this, notice that it says 100 watts output, but only 45 watts input, and that's what they changed. Notice it says 100 and 100, right? So that's what they changed on version 2. I don't know why they dropped it down, but then the E500, they put it back to 100 in and 100 out. But if you were buying the E300 right now, you would get the 45 watt output version, and that's a huge difference. So that's why we make this page. So support this page, guys. Go there, bookmark it, and you could just right click and save those, and then you can keep records of it to see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. That's why we made this. Okay, so let's get rid of this here and go back to this bad boy. Let's see here. Let's look at the pictures real quick too, since we're up here, and then we'll go down to the specs here. Let's see here. Oh, this is the wrong one. I'm sorry. This is the 2000. There you go. Easy to get confused on these guys because they all look the same with that same the whole color scheme and everything. We do like Halloween, so it matched Halloween perfectly. But to each their own. Okay, so this is the system. One thing I don't like right away on it is it only has 3 outputs. Not a fan of that. So the E2400LFP has the same, and you find yourself running out of ports very quickly. Like for us, we had on ours we had a 7 cubic foot 1500 watt surge refrigerator, and then we had I think it was a 12 or 1300 watt surge freezer, which is only a 5 cubic foot smaller. And that if you were to use those 2 pieces of equipment there, notice you only have 1 left. So either you had to put a power strip, which I'm not too much of a fan of unless it has a fuse in it, or a very heavy duty one. That leaves you not a lot of space for expansions on stuff. So you find yourself running out of ports very quickly. See, everything else looks the same as the E2400LFP. I do like, though, guys, that they went to the all aluminum ports on the battery expansion. I think that's much better because you're pulling a lot of amps through the batteries, and that helps keep it cool because it dissipates the heat much easier and quicker than plastic. Plastic likes to retain heat a lot, and then of course with heat, plastic can melt. So this kind of avoids that. Let's see here. Yep, the whole front of it looks the same. Same screen, so obviously your charging method is going to probably be in your app. I do like this output though. This is a 30 amp 12 volt output. I wish they would have had a 24 also. Bluetti has a lot of machines that have 24 output. I'm pretty sure it's Bluetti, but that's helpful if you want to power dump from one system to another. Being that this system is 8.2 kilowatts, you could easily power dump at 24 volts into the solar input of another system and then get that power out quickly if you want to charge a smaller system. Let's see here. All the ports look the same. The vents, the system. I do like their new panels though, guys, because these are IP67, so that is almost 100% waterproof there. It is waterproof up to 30 minutes underwater at like about a meter, so that's nice. That way you don't have to go out and grab them from the rain. I do like these little grommets here, so you can kind of stake them down to the ground so the wind doesn't blow them over, or a dog pushes up against them, or whatever nature has to throw at it there. And they do make very big panels that are up to 300 watts a piece. Solar panels are really changing. They're really changing, and for the better. It's like some have diodes where you can actually change them, or it changes itself kind of. So basically, if I shade half of the solar panel, because of the diodes are in there, it passes that cell because it's in the shade, and it acts like it's not there, so you don't interrupt the rest of the power production. So that's a very positive thing, and solar panels are definitely going to get better. I can't wait to get new solar panels. We just bought 4 REC 400 watt panels, which are very big, but those are like commercial grade. Those are big panels. So if you don't have space, it's hard to put panels like that. And we have 2 arrays of those, which is 74 inches by about 41 inches ballpark. That's a lot of cubic inches. It's 2,800, almost 3,000 cubic inches of space per panel times 8. So that takes up a lot of space on your house or your barn or your fence or wherever you're putting them, or just in your backyard in general. 2 arrays will take up a very large portion of someone's backyard. Let's see here. For the most part, it's the same system. Yep, there you go. So 8 pictures, that's all we get. Okay, so let's go back here. We're going to go down to the specs here. Okay, let's see here. Let's look at the price too, since you're up here. $900. That's definitely better because you get the extra battery pack than the E2400LFP. So I do like that. I do like that a lot. Because the E2400, let's do one more here. That's at $700. So if for $200 more, you get a lot more extra battery pack. And if you guys remember that the E2400 wasn't always on sale like this, it was like $800 or $900 as well. So the price of these systems are dropping wonderfully quickly. So that's a plus. Remember, it's a pre-order. And then, oh, look at that, guys. Wow, this is so new. I must have caught it like early. They don't even have the specs on there as far as like the rest of the stuff. So like when you look at the E1500, notice that you can go down and it has the specs set up. So I must have really just caught this very, very recently when they just posted it here. But I check power station web pages every day, guys. I'm hooked. I'm literally hooked on solar power. It's really changed the way I do life as far as use power and save power. It's brought me more conscience to how I use power and what I'm wasting. When you leave a room and you have your TV on and you're not watching it, and you're in the other room eating, like, turn your TV off, because now you can see. You don't just hook it to the grid and pay the bill at the end of the month. You can literally see the amount of battery that you have on your system, and you go, wow, I have to be more mindful of that. I wish in our country we were more mindful of that for many years, but a lot of us took for granted the grid because it was always there. And now that the grid is kind of starting to structurally break down a little bit, and we're seeing more rolling blackouts and more power surges and outputs and things like that, you can physically and visually see it. And I think that's very important for education as far as power. So me included, we took it for granted because, like I said, it was always there. You just plug in you cord in the wall in the USA, and you're like, okay, I got power, who cares? And then you pay the bill at the end. But you really don't look at the enormous amount of power it takes to run an average household for a year. Just here, I'll give you guys an example here. More learning here. Let's see here. Let's take the average household, which is approximately, I'm going to ballpark it at 15,000 watt hours, okay? And the reason I'm doing that is, they say it's anywhere between 10 and 30. So I'm going to take them right in the median, which is the average, 15. So let's say 50, because we use less than that now. We're more conscious of the power that we use. And that would be a 1,000-watt heater for 15 hours, just to give you a visual in your brain to understand what 15,000 watt hours is. It sounds like money. 15,000 is a lot of money, but if you broke it down, you say, well, I could buy half a car. See how it doesn't sound like much, but it actually is a lot. So depending on what you use it for, as far as the power. Okay, so 15,000, and you're going to times that by 365, which is a full year. So you have literally almost 5.5 what's called megawatts, I believe. That's 5.5 million watts a year. That number is absurd when you think about it in money terms. I always think of electricity as far as money, and that way you're more conscious of it. If I use 15,000 watt hours and I convert that to $15,000, wow, that sounds a lot now. It gets your attention. So I like to think of it as money. That way I'm always conscious of it. So 5.5 million watt hours of power a year. That's insane amount of numbers. Okay, so let's see what we have so far here. 2+ 1 year warranty. I do remember that the E1500 had a 5-year warranty. That I like better. The 2400 watt AC pure sine wave inverter with 4,000 surge. Now that I do like the way they explain this, because excuse me, Pecron surge was not always as good as it sounded. So on the E2400LFP, we were able to go just up and maybe possibly a very small hair over 2,000, and then the system would pop. On the E1500, it has a 2200 watt inverter. We were able to go just a hair over that, maybe like 2400 watts, but it was better. It wasn't what they promised. And how they get away with this kind of thing is it can literally handle that amount of power, but for literally half a second. That's how they can get away with putting that on there. So any real time, it's not gonna help. So I always look at being very conscious of the surge power and staying very close to the inverter rated power, just to be safe. Let's see, you have a 51. Which is known as a 48 volt battery pack, which is why you have the EP3000s. That's a 48 volt battery pack. You can adjust the charging speed. That I love. I absolutely like that. And like I said, I didn't understand how important that was until later in my solar life. Then I found out, wow, that's really helpful. when you have to, like explain again what I did before. Okay, and then you have your UPS to XT60 output, 30 amps at 12 volts. You have the app control and the Wi-Fi control, hopefully, and I'm expecting it to have Bluetooth. I would like the system to have Bluetooth only. We've talked about this many times on this channel. I am a huge fan of Bluetooth only for the people who don't like to mess with the internet. Or if you have a cabin and you don't have internet, then what are you going to do? If you have your phone, it's different. You can use your data, because remember, that costs money on your data. Usually, a lot of people have plans where the data is included, but once you reach a certain amount, they start throttling your data. But that was back in the olden days of cell phones. And this way you can literally take a phone that's a replica phone, if you will. Like I have a small one that's really not a real phone. It's a real phone. It doesn't have a service plan. There's no telephone number to it. I use it as a very small tablet, and the reason I do that is because I use that for RC, either flying drones or cars or cameras and things like that on the drones, or I use it for these power stations, and that way you don't have to pay a monthly fee to have access to your power stations through Bluetooth. That's why I use it that way. Lithium iron phosphate batteries up to 3,500 cycles. Nothing really new there. Can cascade 2 EP2000 48 volt batteries, expandable up to 8.2 kilowatts or 8,192 watts hours respectfully. 700 watts of solar. I would have liked to seen that higher, guys. I would like to see at least 12. Well, you know what? At least 1,000. That way you have a chance to possibly fill this in a solar day. If you use 800 watts, I'm sorry, 800 watts, which is the 700 plus the 100 on the other barrel, and that way you have 8,000 divided by 8. Well, that's still 10 hours, guys. And then if you add on the batteries with that, that's another 8, so 16. So it does help you. But if you had it at 1,000 watts, let's get a calculator here. The numbers are getting me confused. So if you had it at 1,000, and then you plus the 100 from the small port, and then you added the 800 from the two batteries, that would give you that 1,900 watts. So now if you divided that, right, you get just over 4 and probably 4.5, 5 hours, which is a solar day. I think that would have been a much better balance for the system. 13 versatile outputs. We'll go back and look at them real quick, because since they don't have specs yet. I'll have to do another video. 50 watt-hour wireless charger, 100 watt USB-C output, I like that, and then more ways to recharge: AC, solar, car generator, and AC plus solar. So yeah, they don't even have the specs for the input of the car. Usually you get about 100 watts or so through a standard car, and a 24 volt system you get just under 200 watts, or approximately 200 watts through a 24 volt alternator or big rig system or something like that. So let's bring up the big system here, the big picture, and we're gonna, boy, this page is jumpy. Pecron, you gotta fix your page again. Okay, so let's look at the system as good as we can here, and notice that we have 32 to 95 volts for the, I'm gonna assume, because it doesn't say, it does look like it, the 5-pin aviation port hidden underneath this tab. And then they have from 12 volts to 18 volts, which is 100 watt max. Now this is a misconception. A lot of people, only because that's what they wrote on there, people take this the wrong way. This port can maintain up to 25 volts VOC. That's voltage open circuit, or open circuit voltage. Some companies say it differently. And the reason for that is this is the actual working voltage of the port, and they don't clearly explain that. It's almost like they use the same cutout design for this system. Judging by the last video that I put up, this might not be, I just popped in my head, this might not be that secret power station they're working on, because I think that the buttons, I think there was one here, one here, and one here. I'd have to go back and look at that. So maybe there's another one coming, and that's the one I'm thinking is 1,000 watt hours. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And then you have your screen. Everything on your screen is the same. This is a UPS that stands, it lets you know if the grid is active and is using it as an uninterruptible power supply, which means if you're using it and the grid were to drop, it switches over to the batteries like that, and that way you have you can keep your stuff running where you don't have to reset it or turn it back on or something like that. That's very good for smart devices. Smart devices were a pain in the butt if the grid drops, because they have a special button that, with a power button, where you have to go physically turn it back on. and old style like lights and things like that, or TV. TV's a big thing now too, because the old TVs just had a power button that you'd push or twist or something like that, and now the new ones are smart TVs where if the energy drops, it literally turns off. You have to reset it. So having that uninterruptible power supply keeps your movie playing, and you don't even know the grid just dropped. So that's a plus. Obviously, you'd know that the lights might flicker in the house or something like that if they're on the grid, or they'd turn off, of course. But if you had everything running, like say in an RV, and you're watching a movie and you have your lights and everything on through your power station, and you're attached to a grid like a campsite, which is their grid, you wouldn't even notice the difference. You might see a very, very, very quick little flicker, but it would stay on. And then you have this is your Wi-Fi signal icon here, and that lets you know that you're connected via signal. Hopefully they're getting that app better. I want to see more updates, Pecron, I really do. And this is your temperature. So if your battery cells or your system was a little too hot, or your charging boards or your AC inverter got too hot, it'll let you know, hey, warning, you're either reaching that thermal breaking point, or you've already passed it. So depending on how hot you got the system. And then if you do have a voltage overload or a power overload, it gives you that warning right here. And there's lots of warnings that show up in the app if something like that happens too, and it logs them too. So if you miss it, or you walk out of the room and come back, you don't know what happened, you can check the app and see what happened in the log. So that's a plus. Here's your battery voltage and your percentage. Obviously you can switch it from voltage or the percentage of the battery by a click of the button. Usually it's the DC for that one, and I believe the AC for this side. This is your battery icon, of course. Basically simple. If the battery is full, it's full. Here's your DC out icon and your AC out. This stands for pure sine wave. And then you have your power out, which is your DC, and your power out, which is your AC. Now this right here is a little confusing at first. So let's say you had solar coming in at 700 watts, okay? And then this is something to learn. Say you had solar coming in at 700 watts and you're using well, you actually, let me rephrase it, because you couldn't use 700 out for DC. Say you had 100 watts. Say you're using this port and you have 100 watts coming out as a DC going into the system, and then you're using 100 watts out this port. That means that this will actually show 0 watts because it flows right through. So this meter up here balances on itself, if that makes sense. It takes whatever's coming in, minuses whatever's going out, and shows you that. There's no two separate things that show you this is input and that's output. It just minuses it. So on some days, it'll look like, if you're getting your 100 watts in and you're using, like, say 50 watts out, it'll only show up 50 watts on this meter up here, and that looks like your solar is struggling, but it's really not. It just minuses it for you. So that's something to keep in mind when you see those low solar numbers on certain days if you're using DC output. It doesn't affect the AC because that's separate, but it does affect the DC. It's not a bad thing, it's just something to get used to. When you look at the numbers, you go, why is the solar so darn bad today? Well, that's because it's minusing what you're taking from the DC. Pretty simple. Okay, so then you have, this is your input here, and that has 100 volts to 120 volts, 15 amp max. Remember, that's up to, what was it, 1800 watts? That's a lot of power going in that little box, guys. And then 2400 watt inverters. Now this system, I would expect to have seen the NEMA TT30P, the RV plug. You would expect to see that, but for some reason they didn't put it on there. Maybe it's a lack of space or something, because it does look very tall and skinny. But I would have liked to have seen that, even though I'm not a fan of that one, because I don't need it. I mean, it's nice to have, but we just don't need it. So you're not a fan of something you don't need, really. It would have been nice to see that on there for people that have RVs and things like that. Here's your 100 watt output. Now, the one thing that Pecron never does is put two 100 watt power delivery ports on their systems. I noticed that. Other systems have that. Like, I've got older systems that actually have two. Like my Oukitel P2001 actually have two 100 watt outputs. So you and the wife or the husband, you don't have to argue about who gets the good port and who gets the slow port. And then you have another USB-C that's only 18. So if you guys had to, argue and fight over these ports, obviously there's going to be a big winner and a big loser in that debate. And usually Let's be honest, guys. The wife's going to get this one, and we're going to get this one. Happy wife, happy life. That's something I learned. Okay, and then you have 4 what are called grandpa ports. These are 18-watt quick charge 3.0 ports, and that's 18 watts of power for the old device. I noticed that's the same as the USB-C. That's why I like to see the USB-Cs much higher than the grandpa ports, because you know, in all realness, they could have just put another USB A right there. You know what I mean? So if you're going to put a USB-C, I always recommend having one that's 45 watts or more. I like that. Otherwise, it kind of, you know, defeats the purpose of having that new technology if you're not utilizing it. Here you have your 12 volt, 30 amp hour, 30 amp max output. This is called an XT60. This is a very, very good plug for the RC world. Very, very good because the insulation around the pins, and the pins are very large. It allows very, very strong amount of amps, as you can see, 30 amps, to flow through there without heating up. That's a good thing. If you tried that with something like this, run 30 amps through this thing would start on fire, because this is not rated for that. And the pins and the ring, this is a ring on the outside and this is a pin on the inside. They're too close together, and there's no insulation between them other than the pin that you put in there, which is the actual cord, and it allows the heat to transfer back and forth too much, and these ports usually heat up too much. That's why they limit it to only 5 amps. There's just it's not made for high current draws. And then here's your standard cigarette lighter. That's what I'm going to call it till the day I pass away. That's a cigarette lighter, guys. A lot of people call it car port now, or if you're in a boat, I will allow marine port, but that's a cigarette lighter. Even though I don't smoke, that's known as a cigarette lighter my whole life. Maybe they'll, you know, officially change the name of that one day. Let's see what else we got here. This is your battery expansion port, of course. That's for your EP. Remember EP, Eric Paul. We actually termed the name Eric Bob on the 24 volt and the Eric Paul. That way when we're talking about it, because if I say it fast, EBEP, they sound the same. So I don't want people to make that mistake. You want the Eric Paul system battery for this system. Don't buy the Eric Bob version, the 24 volt. And these are obviously your vents. The other one had the vents as well. 2 fans here. Then there's 2 more on the boards, and then there's 2 more on the charging. Actually, on this system, there's only 1 because there's probably only 1 MPPT controller in there, possibly 2. But the E2000 had 1 per MPPT controller board, a fan on each one of those to help it cool down. I don't see it, which is weird. I don't see the wireless charging logo up here. I think this is a artist animation of the box, but notice that there's no Wi-Fi, you know, where you put your phone, that wireless charging logo that's usually up there. I didn't notice that till now. Let's see if I got, yeah, see there's really, this normally would say, let me show you what I mean here, just in case we have any new people to the channel and they don't know what I'm talking about. Things to look for here. Let's go to this. Now notice that when you go to this one, oh boy, okay, here we go. We got this button. Okay, and then when you zoom in, notice it has the Wi-Fi. That means put your phone here. So, like I said, I think that's just an artist rendition of that. Notice that the E1500 has the fuse right here, and the E2400 does not have a fuse there. You notice that? So I don't know if it's, sometimes they put a fuse, like if you pull this open and the fuse is inside where you actually take a screwdriver and pop it out. But this one has a twisty thing, which I made a video of that, and the fuse is that way. So maybe they put it inside here, you know, to save space. Because notice that actually, well, I suppose you could move this over and put this in there, but maybe they did that to save space or make it cleaner looking on the front. You know, less stuff. I kind of like it, guys, when they have more stuff on a power station. Even if you don't use it, it just looks cooler. It's kind of like the flying in an airplane, you know, all the little buttons and diodes and you know, doohickeys or whatever they're called, little azimuth and azimuth or whatever they're using, little gauges. I think that looks really cool. I was always a fan of that as a kid. More buttons, the better. I'm a sound guy, so I like more buttons. Even if I don't use them, it just looks cooler. Okay, guys, well, that is the first look. Obviously, there has to be more looks at this because we don't even have a spec page here. We don't have a review page. We don't have all the traditional things that are on there. Look at all the stuff that's missing here real quick. See the frequently asked questions, the reviews, the specs. I didn't see the owner's manual. Let's see if they have it yet. I will post what I know about this into the solar power database. If you guys want to utilize that, feel free. It is free. It's 100% free to use that. Yeah, see, I don't see an E2400 in here. Let's see here. Maybe it's down on the bottom, which I would put it towards the top. No, okay, so they don't even have that. Guys, I must have caught it just on I have very good timing some days, or awkward timing some days. I must have caught it on the actual day that they just posted it, and they're not finished updating the page. If you want to take a look at it, the link is down there. You can go take a look at it and see if you like it, if this works for you guys. In between this and the E3600, guys, if you can afford and you're able to get the E3600, I really, in my heart, believe that that is a much better system with more options, but it's twice the price. The batteries are the same price, but the system itself, the head unit, which is called in DJ world, the main system, the head unit, the part that controls everything, is twice the price. I think that's $15.99. Let's see what that is here. Yeah, $15.99 here. So, but you get a lot more bang for your buck of this system. You get bigger outputs, you get more outputs, more inputs, 2400 watts of solar. But everybody, see, you get 5-year warranty on this one too, so that's something to look at into as well. And then you could also do 240. If you do have the ability to get this system, I personally, this is just an opinion, and that's what the whole channel is. This is a collection of my opinions, because I'm not a professional. I'm just a guy that found solar and really enjoyed it, so I'm trying to spread it to the world as far as maybe it'll help them. But or you, or the subscriber family, or whoever. But notice you only get a 3-year warranty on this system, so something to think about. Same batteries, so you're not going to pay any more for the batteries than you would no matter if you have this system or that system. The same price, you know, for the expansion. But the system itself, you get bigger inverter, more solar, more output, 3600 watts as opposed to 2400 watts. But maybe this is for the mobile person that can't carry an 80-pound system, because that's a lot of weight. Maybe this is, see, it doesn't even have the weight. I didn't even notice that. I'm going to guess that this is probably, I'm going to guess maybe about, I want to say, I don't know, 2,000 watt hours of power. I'm going to say it's about 50 pounds. I bet you it's real close to 45 to 50 pounds. And that's just a guess. I think the inverter is going to be a little heavier, but this is about a 45-pound weight in traditional power stations, maybe just under 48, 49, 50 pounds. So I'm going to say about 50 pounds for the system, but lots more to learn, guys. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to comment, guys. The subscriber family is awesome. If you're not a subscriber family member, please, it's free. Join up, and everybody is like-minded with solar. They talk and discuss things. Possibly in the future we might start a Discord, and you know, we could have a situation where we can all help each other learn, because that's what it really comes down to. Nobody has the perfect answer for anything. Nobody. Everybody is still learning. Even professionals are still learning, because you can't learn everything if the technology keeps changing. Always remember that. Student for life. That is an old saying that I will live and die by. Student for life, because the technology changes, which means you have to go back and learn it again. The car mechanics of 50 years ago is 100% different than today. Obviously, some of the mechanics from 50 years ago can't even fix the new cars, because it's all computerized, and batteries and all this other, you know, crazy stuff. So no one's a professional for life. All right, guys, ramble on, be safe, and I'll see you here next time on Ramblin Bob Reviews. Bye, guys.